All right, it's another show, and hey, Robert, what's going on? There's only two of us here.
Yeah, we're a man short. The video just doesn't look quite right.
Yeah. How are we
With
going to do
with
pre-cals then with just two of us?
I think we can manage through it somehow. Um,
Really?
but because what's interesting today is that our guest is actually going to fill in the third window in just a few minutes, and our guest is Emerson Kerr, our
Right.
co-host here on Sleep Tech Talk, and more importantly, the reason he's here today is to talk to us about the American Academy of Sleep Technology and the ASTs. Some changes that are going on, and some things related to the future of the AST. And as the president, I can promise you that there is no one working harder for the field of sleep technology than Emerson Kerr right now.
I would tend to agree. I've seen him on the talking circuit, and you and I both know very well trying to schedule schedule these show recordings. It's tough because the guy to pin down is Emerson. It's typically not the guests as much as pinning down Emerson's schedule, and the guy is really out there, getting out there, and professing the faith, so to speak, of sleep technology.
He is. He is. And by the way, for anyone who wants to know the backstory of Emerson Kerr, you got to go all the way back to episode 3, I think it is, of Sleep Tech Talk, and you can hear Emerson in his own words tell you about how he got into the sleep industry and what his career has looked like over the years. But yeah, go back to episode 3, Introduction to Emerson Kerr.
That's a a good point. I forgot. We're in the 80s right now in terms of episodes, and yeah, that was way
A couple
back
years
then.
ago. A
Oh
few less
yeah.
wrinkles, a few less gray hairs for you. Um,
Yeah.
so
But yeah, that's you're right. People can listen to how he got into it and where he is now. Where in fact, if people are interested at all, where we were before and where we are now,
yeah,
it'll be interesting to hear what Emerson has to say where the AAST is now as
absolutely.
well.
Let's do
All
it.
right, let's do it. On to the show. Now, a word from our sponsor, MedBridge Healthcare. MedBridge Healthcare is a leading provider of sleep lab management services and home sleep apnea testing. MedBridge partners with hospitals, healthcare systems, and medical academic institutions to offer comprehensive, fully integrated services for sleep disorders.
Lights out.
Welcome, everyone, once again to another episode of Sleep Tech Talk, the sleep podcast with your hosts and friends, Emerson Kerr, Robert Miller, and me, Dr. Gerald George Mannikarote. Hey, folks, it's a special week. It's Sleep Tech Appreciation Week. So this goes out to all of you. And we thank all the sleep technologists out there for the hard work that they're doing, the ones that stayed up all night. We thank you so much for that. And each and every night that you're staying up, those in the daytime for scoring those studies, getting the reports out, and getting everything else done in the daytime to make things happen, as well as running those daytime studies. We thank you so much. Huge shout out to all the sleep techs out there. And thank you to all of you, other sleep professionals and sleep curious, for joining in and listening to our show. We thank you so much for making it the success that it is. Over 500,000 listeners and viewers so far, and we can't thank you enough for that. And folks, a huge shout out to our sponsors, without whom we can't do this. Thank you so much for helping us make this show the success that it is. With that being said, let's get started with this special episode of Sleep Tech Talk, Sleep Tech Appreciation Week. And Robert, why don't you tell us what's happening?
Hey, guess what? We have a special guest today. We have with us Mr. Emerson Kerr, who is the president of the American Academy of Sleep Technologists. And by the way, one of the he's the thought leader of Sleep Tech Talk, the sleep podcast. So we love this guy, and we're proud of all of the accomplishments that he has in his personal life and career. And He's here today to represent someone other than Sleep Tech Talk. So that's why he's got on the fancy coat and the unusual background.
Welcome,
Emerson,
Emerson.
welcome.
Welcome, Emerson.
Oh, well, thanks. Thanks so much. I'm not used to being the guest here, so this is really odd, but quite a pleasure and quite an honor to be in this position today, working with the two of you, on in this role with Sleep Tech Talk has been one of the highest points of my career to share this journey with the two of you and to be able to represent the AST today is extraordinary because there's a lot of great things happening with them, and I'm excited to talk about that with you guys today.
Well, how about we start off with one of the big features that happened this year with the AST and the ASM? Could you start us off with that?
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. Several months ago, well, actually a year and a half ago, we began a conversation with the ASM, the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, talking about, how could the AST and the ASM work together again? There have been a bit of a division, even though we would collaborate on special projects, that unity just wasn't there. And, it created, a tough situation for the industry because not only was that separation a factor in what we were seeing in sleep technology, but so was COVID, so was the CPAP recall, so was just the retirement of 25% of the sleep techs in the industry. So many things were happening all at once that weren't very positive. And one of the things that I and Laurie Fordyce and the board recognized is that when it came to the AST and the ASM, we're just simply better together. And so we began this journey of how could we work together, and that began to evolve into how could we really be together again. And it took several months, over a year actually, to really bring into fruition what we see today. And as of August 1st of this year, we were united and the Academy took over the management of the AST. It was a tough several months of trying to, make the changes from our previous company. A lot of positive things have happened since then, and our relationship with the Academy is better than ever. There's a lot of positive things on the horizon that we're excited about, but that journey, it took a lot of work. A huge thank you to Steve Van Hout, Chris Waring, and the team there at the Academy for what they did to bring us along and get us to where we are today.
So go ahead, Robert.
Sorry, I was trying to come off mute. Hey, Emerson, so what was really the reason behind making that transition? I know that the parties had separated, and the ASM even attempted to try to establish their own sort of credential and certification for sleep techs, and I know there's been a sleep tech track at the American Academy of Sleep Medicine's annual conference, but sort of where did things sort of end up with that other group, and what sort of precipitated the need to I know it makes sense for us, and we're all better. By the way, in my mind I was singing some song about being better together or something, but tell us a little bit about the where things had sort of fallen off, and I know that there were some service level issues, so I think it's okay to address those things for sleep techs to know that they can expect better in the future.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we'll be talking about the very first Monday, all of you will hear this early Monday morning, the week of Sleep Tech Appreciation Week, but that afternoon we'll have a board meeting where we really take a deeper dive into what you're asking, Robert. But to your point, what we recognized with our previous company is we were not providing the value to the members that we needed to provide. And Robert, you and I have had long talks about this from not just our members, our technologist members, but even our vendor partners, that the AST simply wasn't giving back what would be the right kind of value. And so we also recognize that in the relationship we were in, it simply wasn't going to happen. And that's okay. We needed a better partner. And so, the Academy also had technology training and has technology training in place right now. They have a great A-STEP program. They have ISR. They have a few other things, and we're collaborating with the academy and looking at the future on how we can work together. But I think the thing that really drove us together the most is the sleep tech shortage. It's extraordinary. When I first reached out to the academy and was able to present our cause to come, on board with us, the one thing I recognize is that at that time, of all of the AASM board members, every sleep lab that they were affiliated with had an open sleep tech position. So they were looking for techs, just like everywhere else. We see the same problem in Canada. We see the same problem in Europe. All over the globe, the sleep tech shortage is extraordinary and it's painful. And so what really has driven us back together the most is that symbiotic relationship. We need each other. We're not only better together, we need each other to survive. And these headwinds that have happened over the last several years have been costly. I mean, technology is changing. The role of the sleep tech is changing. And as that does change, we've got to change with it, but we've got to have the right kind of partner to do it. And so that's a lot of what drove this is the need to work together to bring more people into the field as sleep technologists. I mean, there's a shortage of sleep physicians, and all of it together is a very tough situation. The real loser is the patient because the patient's not getting the right kind of care that they need. And so, it drove us back together in a very positive way, and we're collaborating together on what that future can look like.
So Emerson, I think this is a nice segue to begin this conversation about the future. So you said technology is changing, the role of sleep tech is changing, and I know that's something that you've been speaking about quite a bit across the country. But for those who haven't had the pleasure of hearing you speak in person, could you talk a little bit about that, the role of the technologist that's kind of the way
Which,
it's
by the way,
changing?
there can't be anybody left that hasn't heard Emerson talk because he has been at every sleep conference this
It's
year.
exactly.
Honest to goodness, Emerson, I mean, your travel schedule is pretty
It's
intense.
crazy.
It's nutty for sure. But I appreciate the question, Jerry, because as we look at the future, I think it's exciting. And that's one of the things that I try to tell everyone at every meeting we go to, and you guys have heard me talk about this, is that as we look forward, it can look daunting. Some of the things that can be intimidating are the things like AI and the scoring that goes with it, the rise of type 2 and the proliferation of type 3 testing. All of those things can be something that can be discouraging, but they shouldn't be. We've got to really think about how we as a community can own these technologies. We talk about it a lot here on Sleep Tech Talk of the role of the sleep tech, the rise of the CCSH, that clinical educator that is so important. And that's been one of our centerpiece topics on this show from the very beginning is what can that role look like? And so when I look into the future and I think about what the sleep technologist role is, it's more of a sleep practitioner. It's more of a person that is thinking about the whole patient and they're really owning the patient in their journey. I think that's where we can evolve to because technology's become extraordinary. I mean, auto scoring has been around for over 25 years now. It's just that AI as a part of sleep is really come into its own and it's fantastic and we shouldn't shy away from it. We should embrace it. We should own it. And as we begin to learn about what AI can tell us about endotypes and phenotypes, then we become better at what we do. We become, an extension of the patient to the physician and from the physician to the patient. We become that really special middle ground for in healthcare. And I think that's a special place for us. But we have to think in those terms. We can't think of how things used to be. Because I was sharing with a group the other day. I remember when the first computers came out for PSG, and the first questions the techs I was working with asked her, how are we going to know when the patient turns over? Because we're not going to be able to hear the pins. We're not going to be able to hear heart rate changes or seizure or things like that because the pins told us so much. And then we went from 2 nights of testing to split nights. And were we going to be able to give adequate care? And then when home testing came, is it going to cannibalize everything we do? And the answers to every one of those fears has always been no. There's probably always a bit of a hiccup in the market, but everything seems to normalize because 85% of the patients that have sleep apnea have still not been identified, diagnosed, or treated. So we still have a massive population to take care of. And sleep technologists, to me, are the most passionate characters in this story. And that's why I get excited about that. Because when I think of the role of a physician or a nurse practitioner or anyone that's out there, no one, in my opinion, cares more about the patient's journey than the sleep technologist. And so when I think of, okay, how do we pivot? How do we embrace the future? I think it's taking that passion that we all have, like the three of us have done, and it's channeling in that direction of how do I own the patient journey from the sleep navigator, sleep educator, sleep coach, all of these things, and making that our own, embracing what this new technology can do so we can reach more patients in our communities, for our doctors, for patients, for organizations, and for ourselves.
Hey, Emerson, I remember a day and a time when the AST was really considered, from a national perspective, was really considered the thought leadership for sleep technologists. And I think that based on the separation from the ASM and just some different dynamics in the industry, those things seem to have changed. I do think that it's headed in the right direction under your direction and guidance as the president. But tell us a little bit about that particular piece, because that really has to be where the AST comes back into play and becomes the it's not just that you get to be the credentialing body and add another credential to be the thought leader, but actually the group that's driving from a leadership perspective and pushing the industry forward.
That's a great question. One of the things that when I first joined the board of directors for the AST and then became treasurer, I realized something that we'd gotten away from as the AST, and that was a real focus on the basics. And that's no fault of anyone's. There was a summit that happened around 2009, 2010, where the industry was asking us, the membership was asking us for education around complex disorders, complex therapies, critical thinking skills. And so our field had reached this maturity level, so to speak, where they were hungry for depth. Well, we kind of took our eye off the ball on those coming in, as new to the field. And we put more of an emphasis on the complexities and less of an emphasis on new. Well, now that we've had 25% of our workforce retire, many left because of COVID, others left for a litany of reasons. We've got this new generation of techs coming in, and we weren't really thinking about them and developing them along the way. And that development is multifocal. It's not just about the clinical side, but how are we mentoring? How are we growing this next generation? I mean, the three of us came out of a time where, we were on tech support. We didn't call tech support. We were tech support. We made some of our own solutions. We worked with innovators and pioneers. Well, this generation of technologists that have come over the last few years didn't have that luxury and didn't have that opportunity. And we've got to mentor that group. We've got to grow that group. And we've also got to have a strong focus on high schools and colleges. We've got to do a better job of outreach. And that's even working with other partners like COA PSG, so that as we help them, reach out to the high schools and colleges to recruit into those schools so that people can see this as a career. Because right now, we're not doing that. And that's our fault. We've got to take ownership of the fact that we haven't owned that position of driving and encouraging people into this career. And it's an amazing career. I fell in love with sleep almost immediately when I got involved in it, gosh, back in 1998. And we've got to be able to communicate that same thing, that same passion and that same love for this field to these people that find it mysterious. And it's such an amazing place. But I think that's where we got off track, is we didn't focus on the basics like we should, and that's no one's fault, because the people that were leading at the time did what they were asked. But we've got to get back to that place. We've got to continue to develop around the complexities that we've been asked to do, like we've been focused on. but we've got to keep our eye on the ball about who's coming into the field. We've got to recruit, we've got to retain, we got to develop, we got to give people purpose.
Are you a sleep tech looking for new opportunities? Well, MedBridge Healthcare is one of the largest employers of sleep technologists, and they are growing. If you are a sleep technologist interested in a new position, potential paid relocation, or looking for a career advancement, consider a career with MedBridge Healthcare. Now back to the show.
Emerson, one of the things that I'm passionate about, and I think there really is some true momentum right now, is the state sleep society meetings, and becoming, the AST becoming an avenue to be able to potentially bring better speakers, newer topics and newer content into those state society meetings. And a few of the ones that you and I have attended together, and maybe even separate this year, higher vendor attendance, higher sleep tech attendance than there has been in years. So I'm encouraged from that standpoint. It feels like that we are on the precipice of a real opportunity to engage and drive the industry forward.
No, I think so. I think that you're absolutely correct. I mean, I think we've rebounded from COVID, because the other thing is the limitation of how people can depend on ISR. That I know a lot of people were upset to see that change, but the reality is it's good for us. We need to have that community experience at these meetings. And that's one of the reasons I'm very excited that we have the sleep tech track back at the national meeting, that we'll have our membership meeting there. It will be the AST meeting. And it's for that same reason. We've got to have community. We've got to be able to talk to each other and have that peer-to-peer relationship, because it's that better together stretches across the whole continuum. I need to know what people are doing in other parts of the country. The techs here in Alabama need to know what's happening in Seattle. They need to build that camaraderie, that relationship, because even though they may have different things happening at a state level with laws and licensures and things like that, we're still taking care of people, and the patients are the same, and they have the same challenges and disorders, in Alabama as they do in Washington, or, where you are in North Carolina, where Jerry is in Texas. Those problems are all the same. And we can still, we've got to have that collaborative feel, that fraternity that, we've lost, because we really haven't had an in-person meeting as a national society in over 6 years. And that's way too long. And that's what we're excited about Sleep 2025 in Seattle, to have everyone there. I hope everyone listening to this call can come, because I think it's going to be exciting. We've got great leaders stepping in to lead this. And what we expect out of it is a rebirth and a new excitement for sleep technology as we come together again.
So Emerson, this is another nice segue. Both what you both talked about. One, you were talking about the future and the newer generation of people, and Robert talked about the influx and the preponderance of education and speakers coming in at the state level. And we try to combine that this year at the Texas Society of Sleep Professionals with putting it open to students, and we created a separate track for polysum students to allow them to come in at a discounted rate. With that being said, what can people look forward to from the AAST in the future? We talked a little bit about, fostering the new generation, but what else can they expect from the AAST?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jerry. I mean, some of these things are in development, so just to be candid, but we are looking at innovative ways to do education and bring education to our members. Because right now, there's just not, the value's not there. And we recognize that. We've done a SWOT analysis with the ASM. And among the things that, we discovered is we weren't really offering much. The A to Z has been great, but how can we make it better? How can we make it more accessible? How can we make it more frequent? How, the call for volunteers, I had people reach out to me last year asking how they can volunteer, and we didn't make that easy. We want to make that easy going forward, so that people who want to be engaged have a way to be engaged, so they can contribute to that educational development. We had great webinars that we did over the last couple of years. How can we do those better? how can we make those more accessible and actually even have content that reaches a broader audience? So there's a lot of different things that we're thinking about there. I mean, one of them that I'll give you a sneak peek on is we're thinking about a study club. And, that would be exciting because people who want to maybe listen to an author that is talking about a chapter out of one of the textbooks. I mean, right now we're actually redoing, the beginning process of the fourth edition of the AST textbook. So, what if you could talk to the author that was behind one of those chapters? Those are some of the things we're thinking about that are innovative, that are different, that we want to bring that will be special. But we also want to be that resource, because when you look at the bandwidth of educational modules and sections that we already have on the website, it's extraordinary. There's so much. There's a fantastic piece on, ECG, another one on titration. We've got some that are coming on scoring and other things that people can really latch onto and learn so much from. So, we've got a lot there. We've got to make it easier to access. We've got to make it user friendly. And we haven't done that in the past, and we're in the process of changing that so that that user experience is fantastic.
Emerson, we are running out of time, and thank
You're
you
not
so
supposed
much.
to say that to me.
Yeah, well, that's part and parcel of the show, right?
Yeah.
So, but is there anything else you want to add before we go? Or, like you said, a lot of people reached out asking how they can help. If people want to reach out and they haven't thought of doing that until listening to this, you talked about reaching a broader audience. Hey, Sleep Tech Talk does that. But where could they get more information?
That's a great question. Thank you, Jerry. The AST's been around for 45 years. And that just says a lot all by itself. We have been through so much. We've been through a lot of changes, incredible leaders, so many great members. Right now, we're at just under 2,000 members with AST, and that's not everyone that's out there that's serving in this amazing field. So, it's not just a call for volunteers, but a call for members again. So if you're a registered sleep tech or someone working in this field, a certified tech, a CCSH, please consider joining the AST as a member, because the volume in members speaks for itself. And we want to do things from advocacy to education to growing the field to bringing people into it. So our vision is big, it's exciting, and we want everybody involved. We want everyone to feel like they have a voice as well. And that's important to me. It's important to the board that we serve the best interest of sleep technology. And so the website is astweb.org. That's the pathway to get there. But we've got some new people working to help watch those emails and phone lines. Mara Little, Chris Waring, there with the ASM are our leaders that are helping manage the organization, and they'll be prompt to follow up. Just this week, I've had two amazing emails I had to manage about our scope of practice. So we're on it. We've got a great team that's watching those emails and phone calls, and we're excited to be a part of your success as a sleep technologist and seeing where we go as a field.
And not to mention some really cool new board members.
True enough. And we're so glad that you're on the board, Robert.
Uh,
Thank you for serving. You've done an
it's a
amazing
great
job.
group of people. I've been thrilled to be a part of the transition, and excited about where things are headed in the future. It's definitely needed, and I don't have time to do it, but I'm going to make time because I think it's important, and I too want anyone who is listening to this podcast who's not a member of the AST, join this year, and let us show you that it's a different organization, that it's going to be what you need it to be to help you in your career, and take a shot with us.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. Emerson, we're really glad you were able to join us today in this capacity. And I know we've talked about it, and I think this was the perfect time for Sleep Tech Appreciation Week. And so thank you once again. And folks out there, thank you so much for joining us, Sleep Technologists. We thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. And as Emerson said, with the way the technology is changing, how you're adapting and growing, we can't thank you enough for that. And all the other folks out there, the sleep curious and sleep professionals, thank you so much for joining. Until next time, we say lights on. Okay, post-cals, man, that was quite a show. It's kind of funny trying to interview your co-host, huh?
It is, but it didn't feel unnatural, because, I think that it allowed us the opportunity to, really see, and hear from Emerson about his vision for something that's super important in the AST. And, we've gotten old enough and far enough along in our relationships that, we can tell each other that we love each other, and even complain about each other to each other at times. It's great to have an opportunity for one of us to really share something that's important, and, not only to them individually, but also to the industry. And Emerson's he's a gift really to sleep medicine.
I would definitely agree, and I'm glad you said sleep medicine because it's not just sleep technology. It encompasses it all, and now with the integration with the ASM, I think it really shows that this is part and parcel of it. And the point you just said right now, earlier this year, I went with one of the board for the Texas Society of Sleep Professionals to a local college here that has a poly-som program. And we were talking about the future, what is available for them and what are career opportunities, because, most of them are just thinking the night tech and then possibly scoring in the morning, but to let them know that there are things beyond that. And Emerson highlighted some of those points today as a complete practitioner, which takes it to a whole different level. Obviously, the three of us are on a different level in terms of career-wise, because it's not really clinical, but we still have that clinical core that allows us to be to understand what the patient goes through. But the opportunities that are being created now are just tremendous, and I'm very happy to see the AAST doing that. And I agree with you. Emerson is definitely preaching the gospel of that change and of what the best is yet to come, so to speak.
Love it, love it, love it. Yep, he's definitely
The
the uh,
evangelist.
the evangelist of sleep medicine right now. And we need that. My goodness, it's someone who can bring together different factions, and you know uh, I would say organizations even that have their own priorities, and pull all of that together, and try to bring people together for the betterment of our profession. So, kudos to Emerson.
I agree. And it's going to be exciting to see what more comes in the future. And hey, we got you also on the board, Robert, and I know you're a guy that loves to affect change.
Well, I do. Sometimes it can be a little more change than some people want. So, Emerson's also there to make sure that we taper my change request.
Well, yeah, let's just say it's going to be good for everybody when you have change
Absolutely.
agents like that. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I think that's a great place to stop. And I thought it was an exciting conversation, a great conversation. And folks out there, thank you all so much once again for joining us. And until next time, cheers. Before we go, we would like to thank our sponsor, MedBridge Healthcare. MedBridge Healthcare is developing innovative inpatient, post-discharge, and population health programs to screen comorbid conditions, diagnose, and treat sleep disorders. Learn more about their innovative solutions and career opportunities at medbridgehealthcare.com. Once again, you can learn more about their innovative solutions and career opportunities at medbridgehealthcare.com.